Welcome to episode 9 of Duo Doers. In this episode, we're going to be doing a full-on closet makeover. Two parts. Part 1 is going to be doing the mudding and painting, and part 2 is going to be actually creating the closet organizers. If you want to see something more simple closet makeover, go ahead and go to episode 7. You can click the little pop-up in the top right to check that out as well. Also, as always, links are in the description below. So if you are curious what we're using, go ahead and jump down to the description and you can check that out. Things first is we're going to go ahead and empty out the room. We don't want anything in there that can absorb the dust or make it difficult to clean, because as we deal with mud and we're mudding the walls, it gets very dusty. So we're cleaning out the room of any non-hard surface, and we're going to take everything out of the closet. And I mean everything, all the screws, all the wood, even the anchors, the little plastic anchors. We're taking all that out. We want nothing in there because we're going to mud first. And the reason we're mudding here is because our closet texture isn't matching the same texture as our bedroom texture. So we're mudding that all to smooth it out. And then also our ceiling, you can actually see a little patch of mud hanging from the ceiling. They didn't do a good job of mudding that, so we're going to smooth everything out. And then we also have popcorn ceiling, so we're going to be mudding over that popcorn ceiling, creating a really smooth surface all around. First thing first, when it comes to mudding, is sanding down the paint already and getting it as smooth as we can. And we're getting some of the bumps off there because when we're mudding, the mud's going to fill the voids. So we want everything as smooth as possible so we can just fill in the voids with the mud. When it comes to the popcorn ceiling, if you have popcorn ceiling in your house and you want to get rid of popcorn ceiling, that's one of the ways you can get rid of it, is by mudding it over. It's going to take a lot of mud. I mean a lot of mud and a lot of patience. But you can do it that way instead of scraping it off or putting whole new drywall sheets and laminating it together. They also have some really bad taping here, so I'm taking the tape off between the joints of the drywall when the two drywall pieces meet together. So I'm taking anything that's peeling off of there, taking that off, sanding it down, and I'm going to re-tape that, so it's going to be a nice smooth surface. Most of the time you don't have to do this, just our situation. I'm using just all-purpose mud, or all-purpose joint compound, but just because it's all-purpose doesn't mean you don't have to thin it out a little bit more. It's like paint, sometimes you have to thin it out. And so I made my first batch way too thin, so it got really runny and it got really messy. So you want it about toothpaste consistency. You want to be able to turn your trowel upside down, and that's going to be the big square thing I have in my hand, without the mud falling off. This was runny mud, so it took me a lot longer. I'm patching all the holes first with a 4-inch taping knife, or just a drywall knife. And covering all the holes first, everything where I can, and also dealing with the tape and everything. And then I'm going to start using a 12-inch, or you can even use a 10-inch taping knife. And that's because the wider it is, the easier it is to create a smoother surface and the less sanding you need. Because I'm going to be doing all the walls, all the ceiling, so I need a bigger knife. That's the knife I'm talking about. And it creates a smoother surface, because imagine doing small streaks with the 4-inch versus the 10 or 12-inch knife. And I'm literally just covering the wall with mud. So I'm covering it, I'm scraping off because I want it to fill all the voids. So I'm putting the mud on, scraping it so that it's as smooth as the surface as possible. Now, because I'll be sanding, it's okay if there's some high points, because that's all going to be sanded down. What you want to make sure is all the gaps and all the little dimples in the wall are taken over. You can also add more texture afterwards, like if you want to transition textures, this is something you can do as well. I only did one coat of this because it's in the closet. It's kind of hidden from the naked eye, but if you're doing this for a bedroom, you want to do 2 or 3 coats of mud. So it's going to take like a week or 2, because it takes the mud at least a day to dry, depending on how much mud you're using. You want to make sure that mud is nice and dry before you sand it down, because then it can clump up. So you'll see a very dark color, and then you'll see it dry up to a nice white, and then you'll know you can sand down. But luckily it's only a closet, and even the closet took us about 3 or 4 days to do. And just take your time, be patient. Know it's going to be tiring, but you'll get through it. And what I love about mud is that no matter how messy it gets, it's really easy to clean up. Just a sponge, some water, and you guys can see the carpet that we use in almost all our videos. It's our dirty carpet. It's the best thing to have when you're working on the house. Just something to throw down and get dirty. And just honestly keep going at it. It is time consuming and annoying, but you'll get through it. Especially when you have somebody there working with you on the project. And then it comes down to sanding. And so for sanding, you can see how much dust it creates. So much dust. I actually have to keep leaving the room. And always use protection. Always. Even the mask I had on, it was getting difficult to breathe. So what I did is I actually had a box fan in the window and blowing outside. So it created a negative pressure environment so the dust doesn't go to the rest of the house. Because imagine that dust, the rest of the house. No. So doing that, I would leave the room for a couple minutes, let the suction work and pull out the dust, go back in and do a little bit more. And you can see just even with the suction going outside the house, you can see how much dust just landed in that room. So that's why we emptied the room first. It's so important to do that and create a negative pressure environment. Imagine that dust all over your house. And then I'm using tape here and some plastic drop cloth because I don't want any paint hitting the wood because that wood's not laminated, so it can soak in. And I'm using Kills 2 here. Primer is a primer that we had on hand. It's tinted, but you want to prime your paint because primer is a lot cheaper than expensive paint that you use. So it's going to soak in all that paint. And it's going to prime it, and it's going to seal the drywall mud that I just put on there. So I'm going to prime it 2 coats, and I'm going to let that dry. And then I'm going to go in there with my paint and do 2 coats of paint too. Now, generally, I'm doing this opposite way where you're supposed to do the corners first and then roll the paint on. But for me, it's a closet. You're not going to see the corners. So I just did the big painting job first and then used the remainder of my pan to do the corners with the paint that was in there still. Definitely need 2 coats at least. Sometimes I look at them like I should have done 3. Honestly, be patient with it. I was trying to get this done within a weekend, so I was a little rushed. But if you have the extra time, take the extra time. It's always going to be well worth it. And if you don't invest in anything else, you should invest into a pole for your paint roller. Do not try to paint a house or paint a room or paint a closet without a good pole for your paint roller, because otherwise you're going to break your back. It makes life so much easier. Those longer strokes are so much easier to do with a good pole. And that's it for this episode. Go ahead and check out part 2 over here in the top right hand corner if we've posted that. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Duo Doers. We post videos every Wednesday, and make sure to hit that subscribe button and get notified when we do.